1 week after I was there, the lieutenant came in and said, "Mount up." He didn't tell me nothing. And I got up on his tank, so we went outside the war, and I was enjoying the ride. All the dust and little villages, little kids waving at you, and I toured this area supposed to make a search and destroy with a lot of infantry. So all of a sudden, the whole column stopped. So I seen these two fellas pop up right in front of me, just like you would rabbit hunting. So I said, "Lieutenant." So he punched me and said, "Go ahead and shoot." They were running through the bushes. So I picked up the car 15. By that time, everybody started firing up.
Ask a Vet is dedicated to documenting and preserving veteran stories in their own words on their own terms before their stories are gone forever. Each episode is an unfiltered conversation about who they were before service during war and their adjustment to coming home. If you believe these stories matter, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Your support helps us preserve the voices of those who served. Ask a Vet is proud to partner with Utah Honor Flight, part of the National Honor Flight Network, giving veterans the trip of a lifetime to Washington, D.C. to visit the memorials built in their honor. Every flight is free to veterans and made possible by generous donors. To learn more or support the mission, visit utahhonorflight.org or find your local hub at honorflight.org. And now back to the show.
My real name is Clarence Moses Underwood, but my aunt named me Butch when I was born because she thought that was a sissy name. And I was born December 6, 1949. We wasn't poor, we was poverty, which stepped below. Raised in the projects downtown Atlanta, around Cabbagetown, and grew up kind of hard. Had to do things, even make a quarter to go to the show or something other. But my daddy was a World War II vet, Aleutian Islands, disabled veteran, and we didn't have nothing. And he killed himself right in front of me when I was 14. I picked up the gun and gave it to the police, and I said, "Daddy, you gonna make it." But he didn't. So I grew up without a father figure. But my uncles, they took over my daddy's job of influencing me. They was also World War II vets. One of them was on a bomber in World War II, and the other one, he was a merchant marine. But I have another uncle I never met. He's in World War II. He was on a tank, and he became missing in action, and they didn't find their remains till about 5 years later, and they buried all three of them together. And he's the one that inspired me to be on a tank, because I felt like I didn't have a dead end. And my uncles, they inspired me to go in the military. It's a good place to start. So I went in 1967, 2 weeks after graduating from high school at 17, just to get away from poverty mostly, because there wasn't nothing left. I lived in the ghetto and the projects, but my daddy always inspired get an education, which he didn't. And I didn't apply myself in high school. I just wanted out. So I got out, joined the military, signed up for a tank for a combat because I didn't want to walk. Because I think I weighed about 112 pounds. Okay. So I went to Fort Benning first for basic training. I did good because I was a little guy. I could run, scoot under the wire, and the big guys couldn't do that. So from there, I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky for my tank training. So I spent about 6 months as permanent party at Fort Knox, and we had to go on funeral details at Fort Knox to bury soldiers, give them a military funeral that was killed in Vietnam. I really didn't think nothing about it because that's the place I was going, and they came home dead. I didn't care. So
How was training in the tanks? Was that fun?
For a 17-year-old boy, driving and firing something that's 52 tons, it was quite an experience.
What was the tank they trained you on?
they trained us on the M60 there, which is a more modern tank than the ones we had in Vietnam. We had M48 Patton tank over there, and on the way over there to Vietnam, I didn't talk to nobody. All I did looked out the window, and I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what it'd be like or nothing, 'cause we didn't know much about Vietnam, you know. So on the way over there, I just got my mind right with God, and I wasn't scared. Other guys on there, they had their pistols, taking them over there and cutting up, but not me.
If you or someone you know isn't getting the VA benefits you've earned, click the link in our description. We've teamed up with a group of experts that help veterans build stronger VA claims and get the benefits they deserve. Click the link in our description for a free consultation. Where did you land when you landed there?
I landed in Benoit. And we got orientation, jungle training, and
What was your first impression when you got off the plane?
stunk and real humid and hot. It wasn't a dry heat. It was a wet heat. And, I remember the bus ride going to my unit in Tay Ninh first, right next to the Cambodian border, Louis Bardier Mountain. And I remember the bus ride, they had screens on the side of the bus so it wouldn't throw hand grenades. I didn't know. All these little villages that we went through, little kids that hold up these little animals, saying, "G.I., you want about chop chop?" They were wharf rats. They eat them over there. And your skin one looks like a squirrel skin. So I got to my unit there in Vietnam. I was there about a week in my unit with the 25th Infantry, 34th Armor, A Company. I got there, and about 1 week after I was there, the lieutenant came in and said, "Mount up." He didn't tell me nothing, because I was a F&G. Okay. So I got up on his tank, so we went outside the war, and I was enjoying the ride. All the dust and little villages, little kids waving at you. So I remember going down toward this area supposed to make a search and destroy with a lot of infantry. We always went out with the mechanized infantry, like the wolfhounds. And so all of a sudden, the whole column stopped and made a right turn into this area. And sprayed by Agent Orange. Looked like cutover. Just like in South Georgia. Yeah, ugly. That's why I don't like cutover. A lot of memories. So here we was bouncing through the cutover. And so I seen these two fellas pop up right in front of me. Just like you would in rabbit hunting. Kick a bush or jump out of. So he jumped up. I didn't know. So I said, "Lieutenant, there's two of them out there running." So he got on the radio, called the colonel, and the colonel started cussing him out. We should have got him. So he punched me and said, "Go ahead and shoot." By that time, they were running through the bushes. So I picked up the CAR-15, sprayed the air, and by that time, everybody started firing, the infantry and the tanks. So I scooted down in the loader's hatch. I started chunking rounds into the cannon. Gas was coming out there, and I heard bullets ricocheting on the side of the tank, small arms. So we kept on going, firing, shooting. I couldn't see nothing except smoke and gas I was breathing, because that's my first mission. So after a little bit, things stopped. I peeked up out of the loader's hatch, and I see bomb craters and bodies out there. Then the colonel came over to my tank and chewed that first lieutenant out because he didn't tell me it was in a free fire zone. So that's the last time he commanded a platoon of tanks. They put him in base camp.
Wow.
But after that, I realized this ain't a joyride in a game. It was for real. But after there, a lot of ambushes. They always Always try to hit the tank first. Always. Because we had to stay out there with them for weeks at a time. And
How many tanks would go out usually?
usually a platoon of tank, which is 5 tanks with APCs. We never went out without the mechanized infantry. Then I graduated from being a loader to the driver, which was a better job. You see who's shooting at you. Okay. During a battle. But the driver had about the nastiest job. He had to eat all the dust, and when the cannon fired over your head, and
Okay, back up a little bit. Tell me about the tank. What describe that tank for me that you were driving over there?
Our tank was a M48 patent tank. It had 4 people on it. It had a driver, a loader, and a commander. But the gunner, he didn't ride us. He rode on the back with a M16 in his hand. Okay, because that tank, too hot over there. We used to go out on search and destroyers and set up a perimeter and stay in the area and for about a week at a time and in the infantry and operate from there and on fire bases. And that rocked on. And I remember one time we was at the Fukon Bridge right over the Saigon River, which was a main bridge for everybody coming to Saigon. And I remember one night we had a tank set up on the bridge from our platoon. And policy was you dropped a hand grenade in the river every so often. But I guess that guy didn't do it. And sappers blew up that bridge and the tank fell in the river. But the only injury was one guy. He lost his ear.
Wow.
So, but every night, though, we always got incoming, and every once in a while, trip flare go off, and, wasn't trying to get us. Spending the night out there is a lot different than being in the air, drop your load, go back and have a beer. We spent 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time out there and never took baths and hardly ever took our boots off because you never knew. I didn't take my boots off in the field.
Just because you always felt like you had to be ready.
Had to be ready.
Were you always, every night you were taking fire pretty much? Mostly
about every night in the field. But every once in a while we come back to base camp, for a little R&R, for about maybe a week at the most, work on the tank and get ready to go back out again. I was there in 68, and that was a pretty rough year. But
describe what was going on then.
In 68, that was the hottest year. And we was on the offense in late June and July and August, trying to push them away and run them out around the Saigon area and Cu Chi. Now, in Cu Chi, that's where all the tunnels was. And I was the smallest guy in the company. So they sent me to tunnel rat school. So
where was that at?
It was a little tunnel rat school they had in Cu Chi, that taught you.
And they were using old tunnels to teach you stuff? Or had they dug their own?
They had taught us what to look for. It's like a little school, and, they had things that showed you what to look for and little chambers off the little holes that you go in. But as being a tanker, I wasn't the main tunnel rat. I was just a helper. I went in about 4, what we call spider holes, but I only went in them whenever it was cleared, and I only went in when a blood trail led to one of them.
Like chasing somebody wounded down in there?
Right. So I went in, like I said, about 4 of them, then I quit. And I never found live men in there. I found dead bodies.
How far in would you have to go?
Maybe 50 feet before I found a body, because there was blood trail before I went in. But I had to tie a rope around their leg just for a body count. That's all it was about, a body count. How many did you kill? So I quit doing that because I all volunteer. But I was the littlest one, about 115. So.
And then how often are you going on the tank missions?
Tank missions all the time. Every day depends on where you're at. If you're on search and destroy, you set up in a perimeter in the middle of the jungle, busting jungle, getting red ants all over you that fell from the trees when you hit a tree. These big old red ants, about that big, lived in these nests in the tree, and you hit them, they fell on the tank. And that'd drive you off the tank. So, busting jungle is what we mostly did, and going on search and destroys.
Was it hard to maneuver the tanks in the jungle? Was that, like, challenging?
Sometimes it was, sometimes it won't, because a tank, 52 tons, is like a bulldozer. You rake on through it, and you made a path for the APCs, which was always with us.
Landmines, was that always a thing?
All the time. I hit 4 mines when I was over there, but I was a driver when I hit them. But landmines, it didn't do much to the tank. Blow off a road wheel or the track, but the driver always got the blunt of it, because right under it, it would rattle your brain a little bit, make it a little dizzy. But I just shook it off.
And usually the tank just kept on going.
Nope. You hit a landmine, blew off the track.
The track.
Somebody had to stay there and fix it.
How long would that take?
Sometimes it'd take 3 hours, and sometimes it was beyond repair, so we would blow it up in place because we had to go on about the mission. Okay, but they always blew up the first tank first to start the column. But one time, which was my last mission, was in a bad area in the Hobo Woods. That was Charlie country, and we was on this big mission. So we went outside a little perimeter, a little fire base, and we wasn't gone very far. And the mine sweep team, they missed a mine, and I hit it. My tank was disabled, and I was kind of shook up. So the other guys was fixing the tank while I was manning the 50 caliber on top. And they left another tank and APCs with some infantry there with us. But the other column went on down the road, and they got ambushed down there. Then they hit us because we was fixing the tank, and so we got hit. I got wounded, and infantry guy, I don't know his name, he got a sucking chest wound with shrapnel. So the helicopter, first time I've been on a helicopter.
Wait, and was it a mortar that went off or something, or what happened to you?
RPG came in on us, and that's what happened. Okay, trying to get us. So they loaded up me and the infantry guy on a helicopter, and I said, buddy, we're going home. We're going to make it. Because my right knee was shattered. I watched him die, and he didn't make it. So they medevaced me to Coochie. Then that night, Coochie got attacked with mortars and sappers that got in on the base.
So you were in the hospital?
I was in the hospital. And shrapnel came in the hospital and hit me in the arm.
Gosh. Were you just thinking, oh, man,
let me get the hell out of here?
My gosh.
Yeah. But from there, I went to Saigon, in another hospital, when they got me kind of stabilized. But infection set up in me real bad. Ran a fever. But in the hospital in Saigon, General Abrams and Secretary of Defense Melbourne Lair, they came walking through the hospital ward there, shaking hands. I didn't know who the hell Melbourne Lair was, but I knew who General Abrams was. And for some reason or another, he came over to me and started talking to me and asked me about what I did in Vietnam, how I got wounded. I told him I was on the tank. And he commenced telling me about, he was a colonel in World War II, a tanker. That's who they named the Abrams tank after. So he sat down there about 15 minutes and talked to me about tanks. And that was a highlight of a 4-star general talking to an E5, and, just like buddies talking about tanks. But the other guy, Melvin Larry, he just, hello, I'm Melvin Larry, and kept walking. But it seemed like General Abrams really cared about his troops.
How long were you in the hospital over there?
Saigon, I was there about 2 weeks. Then they moved me to Okinawa, Japan. I stayed there. Total, I was in the hospital 4 months. And in the hospital, I became addicted to opioids. Me and a lot of other soldiers. So I came back after 4 months in the hospital. I got to come home. And the welcome home wasn't too good.
Where did you land? Where did you come into?
I came in to different hospitals. This little hospital, that little hospital. But the last hospital I was in was Fort Benning in Columbus. And that's where I stayed till the end of my time. But I became this full-bird colonel's driver, his flunky. But I liked it. He'd say, Underwood, take me here. I'd take him someplace, drop him off. He said, come back and get me in a few hours. I said, okay. So I go back. He'd be about half drunk. He smoked a big old cigar. I liked the old fella. So I got out of the Army, and I got me a job with Ma Bell System, Southern Bell, because I stayed in Atlanta. And I didn't have any problems, but I never wore my hat. But
you tell anybody you were in Vietnam? You just kept it to yourself?
I just kind of kept quiet myself.
Yeah.
Until I went to a Vietnam Veterans reunion in 1989.
So you would have been in your 40s?
About 40,
yeah.
Correct. So I went to that Vietnam Veterans reunion of my old unit. Big mistake. I've never been to one since. I met up with buddies and they told me about so-and-so was killed. But one of my best buddies on my tank, he was there. Toby Brandt. He had no legs. He lost his legs on my tank. But that was a bad reunion. I'll never go to another one. So I came home from the reunion, went back to work, and I had a flashback when I got back. I beat up my son. I didn't know what I was doing because I got angry and it just triggered it. But I drew a knife on him and my buddy had to pull me off of him before I realized what I did. Then that night, my ex-wife asked me what happened. I really didn't remember, but that wife divorced me after being married to her 52 years. And then I went back to work the next day, and I heard a voice that said, Butch, you need to go to VA. You need help. I didn't tell nobody from my job, so I got my phone truck, went to Atlanta VA, and they said, you're only going to be here about 2 weeks. That 2 weeks became 54 days in lockup, all this counseling, and you meet guys in there just like you that became opioid addicts too in the hospital. They gave us all kind of mind-altering drugs, put you in a corner. They didn't want to deal with it because they didn't know what PTSD was back then. So after 54 days, I got out of the PTSD ward, went back home to society where I lived at in McDonough, Georgia. That's where I started hanging out. Some of the guys I met up there. Other guys just like me that became opioid. I was an opioid addict for about 25 years. Bad. Me and them both. All we'd do, hang out, drink beer, take them. The VA kept giving this to us. My first wife didn't even help me. Stomp her feet. But that's okay. But I woke up, four of my best buddies died, OD, off the opioids they was furnishing for us. I found one of my buddies dead, Mike, the next day, 'cause he was drinking liquor and taking his pain pills. I said, Mike, don't drink liquor with that. But he did. I found him next day with his mouth open. I got off of him cold turkey, 'cause I wasn't going back into the PTSD ward for drug abuse, 'cause I done been in the PTSD ward about 4 times. Sometimes be 2 weeks, sometimes be 3 weeks. But I knew when I needed to go. I would tell my mental health doctor, I said, Doc, think I need a tune-up. So he'd stick me in there for a while and come home, start all over again. When my last buddy died in OD, I found him dead. That was a wake-up call for me, 'cause I was worse than they was, a lot worse. I didn't die for some reason. I said, Butch, if you stay on them, you're going to die, so get off of them on your own. And I did. I didn't die. But it's the hardest thing I ever done in my life. Cold turkey on what I was taking. And
Man, how did you do it? What was the trick?
I didn't care where I lived to die, 'cause if I stayed on them, I was going to die. I just grinned and bared it. It was terrible. The worst thing to get off of is Xanax. They make you ill, can't sleep.
How long was that period?
Getting off of them, I took my last opioid, New Year's Eve, 2019. That was my New Year's resolution. And I did. It took about at least a month to get over all the withdrawals and stuff. But I didn't take nothing.
Wow.
I just did it. I didn't care where I lived to die, 'cause I didn't have a life being on them things. Hanging out, drinking with your buddies, taking the opioids that the VA gave you to put you in a corner. But I got off of them. I lost about 85 pounds. I used to weigh 235, and now I weigh between 145 and 150. I changed my life, and when I did, I came to my senses. And my ex-wife didn't like that, 'cause she handled everything. So I stopped that. Then she divorced me. After being married to her 52 years, my wife divorced me. We had 2 kids. My daughter, she was supporting my wife, 'cause my daughter and my son chose sides. And during the time our divorce was going on, my 43-year-old daughter got cancer. Started off in her colon, took out part of that. Then it moved to her ovaries, took out them. Then it went to her lymph nodes. She lasted 2 years. She died 4 months after me and my wife, her mama, was divorced. She died of stage 4 cancer, left 2 kids, 10 and 6 at the time. Okay. And I wasn't allowed to go to my own daughter's funeral, 'cause my wife hated me that much for trying to straighten my life out. But that's okay. I believe in karma. Now, my son, I hadn't spoke to him in 5 years. He's an Afghanistan vet, and he's like me, PTSD. But that's his choice. But came out good, 'cause I hooked up with my childhood sweetheart, the first girl I ever kissed. And I was 14, she was 12. We were playing spin the bottle. I was the first girl I ever kissed, and I was the first little boy she ever kissed. So I hadn't seen her in 60 years. So I looked her up one time, 'cause her husband died. So we got together, love at first sight again. And we got married, and still married. You met her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And now I'm at peace with myself. I've never had nothing to do with the Veterans Organization till now. And now I'm deeply involved, and I love it, 'cause other veterans up here got same problems as me. And I try to preach to people about them opioids, even high school people. I know what it do to you, ruin your life. Don't let Vietnam ruin your life, cause you to get on opioids to ruin your life and other people's life, your loved ones. I've learned that.
Honor flight. You did that? Tell me about that.
That was the greatest time we had. We went on an honor flight 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And a bunch of us from this post went out there. And they treated us, they gave us the welcome home we never received. We came back to the airport after visiting Washington, D.C., and there was 2,000 people there at the airport, little kids saying welcome home and clapping for us. Had a band. Strangers. We never had that. Went on the honor flight, came back. That was the best welcome home I've ever seen. Made me feel proud. 'Cause a long time we wasn't proud.
Yeah, you guys took the hammer.
Kept it in the closet.
Yeah. What's your takeaway from all that? Your time over in Vietnam now, looking back for so many years.
I'd do it again. You grow up fast. You learn about life. You serve your country. That's what you join for. But what I feel bad for is I have a place in my heart for the fellas that was drafted and forced to go over there and died, took from their homes, their family. They didn't want to go, but they went and they died. But I asked for it, like other veterans that volunteered. And the draftees that died, I don't see why. Now it's all volunteer army, and that's how I feel about that.
Any other experiences over there that stand out in your mind? Anything that was unusual or anything funny or anything that was...
This was kind of funny here. And one time, we were set up in the boonies, and the way we always do, put our little concertina wire and claymores and trip flares. And the policy was, if you put them out, you go get them the next day. But my buddy Toby, the one that lost his legs on my tank, he put out his a little different, because everybody put them out a little different. And I went out there to pick up Toby's trip flares, and I set off a trip flare, and everybody started shooting at me out there. Until Toby told them, Junior's out there, because they called me Junior. Yeah, but
What did you do when they started shooting?
well, I hit the ground and I did him out back to the wire, inside the wire. But they stopped after a few seconds. Yeah. But I had this guy on my tank that was drafted. He was a Mexican-American named Mayo. He had been there about 8 months before I came. So we sat out on the road right there, watching people. And I was bullshitting with little kids and village girls there, which I used to trade things and like sea rations. But somehow or another, Mayo, he hated them little kids. He would take a box of sea rations, take the food out, some of it, and defecate in the box and throw it in the middle of rice paddies. Them little kids go out there in the middle of rice paddies fighting for it. You know what they found. And then he would shoot over their heads and tell them to get him out. That's what Mayo did. But I still see faces at night, and demons come out at night when I'm alone. It's hard to be alone at night for me, and nobody. Real hard. But I survived that, and I made a commitment myself. I'll never go back into the PTSD ward, or I'll never take another opioid. I'd bite somebody's fingers off. But after I got out of the mental ward that first time, I went back to work for the phone company, and all my friends kind of shied away from me because they knew where I'd been. And corporate world, they didn't want a fella like me there because I'm a liability to them. Back in the day I was, because we got a bad name. But I went back and lasted a few years longer. And that's been my life. But one of my friends in my company on my last mission, Charlie Clay, we was buddies. He won the Distinguished Service Cross posthumously in the last battle I was in. I didn't find out until at the reunion. And we had a cook on base camp in Coochie. The cook and our company dog was killed the same night Coochie was attacked, and I got wounded the second time. So you never know. Cook, whatever. You're not safe over there, or wasn't safe.
I get the feeling that's always kind of hanging over everybody's head over there.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Don't know. When incoming in on a base camp, you're at their mercy.
Yeah, it's just kind of luck of the draw if you
You're
get hit.
right.
Right.
If your number's up, you're going to get it. I guess my number wasn't there. But I've had 2 heart attacks, triple bypass, and an emergency pacemaker. But I got a brand new arm now.
Oh, tell me about the arm. Tell me that.
Well, the arm, I got wounded in the hospital, shrapnel in my arm. And over the years, it got worse and worse. But they couldn't operate and give me a new arm because of my heart condition. I had 2 heart attacks and a bypass before I was 52. And I'm 76 now. But I got a pacemaker about 3 years ago that saved my life, got me up and running.
And having the pacemaker allowed them to operate for your arm.
It allowed them to go in here. My arm's like a washboard. You saw it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty wild.
I couldn't even raise my arm that high, but now I can raise it up that high without any pain hardly. And I'm grateful for that. And at least I could hug my new wife now. Where before I couldn't.
What's your advice to guys who still might be struggling with stuff from their service?
My advice, guys that are struggling with opioids or struggling with PTSD, there's always hope. And you sucked it up in Vietnam. Suck up a little pain and don't take the opioids. It's a killer. I know firsthand. That's my advice. And get involved with the VFW. Get involved with guys that's been there like you have, and they understand you. Don't hang around people that don't understand you, because everybody don't. I was only 18 over there. I didn't understand, but I understand now. Life's too short to not to be happy in life and thinking about it all the time. Stay occupied, get good support from a good wife that understands you and got you back. Don't get one like I had first time, one you didn't really love, because I didn't. But my ex-wife, when we ran out of opioids, she used to get them from her sister and give them to us just to keep me in a corner, only for the benefits, not for love. I'm telling veterans now, get involved with the VFW, the Legion, with people that do understand you, because people don't.
It's good advice. It's good advice.
I've learned that.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Greg.
It's a pleasure.
My pleasure.
If you or someone that you know isn't getting the VA benefits that you've earned, please click this link. We've teamed up with a group of experts that can help veterans build stronger VA claims and get the benefits they deserve. Please click this link for a free consultation.